Hi, everyone. I'm Gold Derby News and Features Editor Ray Richmond, and I'm here today with Sarah Timberman, an Emmy-nominated executive producer on the acclaimed FX on Hulu limited series Fleishman Is in Trouble. Congratulations, Sarah, on the
Thank you.
outstanding limited series
Thanks.
Emmy nomination.
Thanks for having me.
And, really congrats on all seven Emmy nominations the project received, uh, including for Lizzie Kaplan and Claire Danes, and of course, Taffy Brodesser-Akner for her writing. So the limited series is adapted from Taffy's best-selling novel. Did you read it and realize I have to be in business with this author?
Yes, for sure. It came out of sort of on the set reading as we were finishing production or finishing post on something called Unbelievable, and Susanna Grant and I worked together a lot, and we were thinking, let's find something else for her to adapt. And I came across the novel, shared it with her. We both fell in love with, Taffy's writing on first read. We both realized immediately it was not something for Susanna to adapt, but something Taffy had to adapt for herself, because why wouldn't she? It's so personal, and she's such a, crazily wild talent, and it would have been ridiculous for another writer to do. So I think she had like 24 offers for this book, and we just sort of pursued it pretty doggedly, and sent it to FX, and they got on board really quickly. And yeah, that's where it began.
24 offers. Wow.
I think so. I mean, that's become the legend, as we like to tell it, but
You know
something like
what? And even if it's, you should up it to 30, if
that. I think it was 40.
Now, Sarah, you were originally in the publishing world before film and
Yeah.
television, right? You
Yeah.
in New York at Little Brown and Random House.
Yes.
So adapting a
Exactly.
book is kind of your superpower anyway.
It's worked out. Carl Beverly, my partner, and I in our company have both found ourselves gravitating toward like great pieces of intellectual property, and that's spans from Elmore Leonard to Taffy, and Taffy is just kind of wondrous in her sort of tireless and relentless probing intellect. And I feel like about Taffy and her writing, I don't know, it's sort of silly, but that line from Hamilton, like, why do you write like you're running out of time? And I feel like Taffy kind of writes like she's running out of time, and somehow managed to write another novel while we were making our show. And I don't know how that worked, but I admire her for it. And yeah, so I came from publishing. It couldn't be more exciting to me to engage with a writer like Taffy, who I think her book is a really rare item. And it was such a privilege to have anything to do with adapting it with her.
Sarah, I had promised myself before we started this interview that I wasn't going to make the whole interview about Taffy, but um,
It's
you're
it's
right. She's such a
she's
colorful and interesting and new and vibrant talent. I mean, what was it like working with the first-time producer and showrunner in
it's it
Taffy?
it
Was
it was one of the great pleasures of my, I'm going to say, both professional and also personal life, because she's become like such a dear friend, in the way that like you get to a point in life and you're like, wait, are there going to be more dear friends? Because I have my dear friends, and now it's like Taffy's woven into that community for me and for Susanna and for all of us who made this show together. It's she leads she leads with both, such a sort of ferocious intellect, sense of humor, subversive streak, and also though like has like such a crazy big heart. Like, she is one of the most feeling, I mean, we're all feeling people, but she wears it on her sleeve. And making the show, she and I always talk about the fact that there were these days on set about once a week where we found ourselves laughing to the point of crying, like literally laughing to the point of crying. And coming out of the pandemic, it was so great to have that kind of experience, because I think people are feeling so disconnected, and sort of looking for meaning in life. And then here's this book turned into this series that is probing the nature of connection and looking for meaning in life and not afraid to ask really difficult questions. So it felt like kind of a perfect antidote to living through the pandemic to work on this project. It was, I feel like everyone involved, John and Val, and we're so excited about their nomination, but everyone involved was so completely on board. This includes our cast and, extending out to just about everyone, but to probe the kinds of questions that the novel probes about, ostensibly it's a story about a man who's been divorced. And then, as you know, the book and the series takes a left turn and it's about his wife, and then takes another turn and it's about the storyteller and these shifts in perspective. But I love that it then broadens out to being about very universal things. It's not just about marriage, and it's not just about what it is to be a working mother in this world in this moment in time, and it's not just about how friendships fall away sometimes by midlife and you have to figure out how much they matter to you, and it's all the things that it's initially about give way to much bigger questions about mortality and the passage of time and the sense of how opportunities close when you sort of there's the great line that Lizzie Kaplan delivers in such a devastating way, but about like how you can be so desperately unhappy while you're essentially happy in life. So anyway, I can't even remember what your question was, but it was such a privilege to sort of dive into all of this with Taffy and then everyone else that we brought into it.
Did you have kind of develop a shorthand on the set? I mean, were you playing mom and hand holder at all, or did she really kind of make it all happen on her own?
I moved to New York for most of the run, but honestly, if I hadn't been there and I did because Taffy had never produced anything before, so to really be there for her. But had I not been there, I think she would have been just fine. Like I think it's a story that's become now a story, but like I would go home after work every day and like talk to my husband and tell him what Taffy had done that day. And he said, she's like a creature or a machine in a science fiction movie. Like it's learning. Like every day it was like she'd come in and ask 5 questions about like she had no self-consciousness about what she didn't know. She wanted to know. And then as soon as she knew it, she mastered it. So I feel like she is like has all of the innate qualities that you need. I think being a showrunner is one of like the really toughest jobs in our industry, and she has all of those innate abilities. She just had to try them out for her first time, but it seems to me, having been through one show with her, I feel like she's produced 5 shows now. Like she knows exactly what she's doing. Like I would have to call her and say, remind me when in editing what we call, like she knows things I don't know. And she's remarkable.
Well, it's amazing to be that quick a steady, Sarah, because I've been covering television in one form or another for, I don't know, 3, 4 decades, and I wouldn't know the first thing about being a showrunner. And she just stepped right in after just simply being a writer and journalist and mastered it right off the bat. What a trip she is too. I mean, just watching her interviews, you can tell what a trip she is. Talking about, oh my God, they were saying my words on the set. I just couldn't believe it.
She never. But that's the thing. Like everything about it. I remember one early day when we had one of those sort of brutal days during prep where you realize like you've run out of money and you have too many days and you're trying to work it out and you're in the office for like 14 hours, and we got into a van together, and I was sort of thinking like, get me out of here and home to a bed. And we got in the van and she turned to me and she said, can you believe we get paid to do what we do? Like, isn't this? And I remember we loved the guy who took it. We just all had a big laugh about it. Like everything was new to her. But I honestly think that she sort of approaches life that way. She's like the least jaded person I know. And, I feel like we talked about, Susanna and I talked a lot about Taffy being sort of a maximalist as a storyteller. She, the scope of her interests is vast. And so there was always an interesting conversation in the script process, like, how much do you narrow it? How much do you need to narrow it? And maybe you don't, and maybe you can allow for a conversation to, to wander off point into other things. And I honestly think that's one of the things that people, to the extent that they've responded to the show, I think they've responded to the feeling that it's like life, that the friendships feel real, the conversations among the friends. Like, we really resisted the impulse to edit things down to make them more, sort of pointed. I think that that's not how friends talk to each other, and that's not how life feels to people. And I think one of the great, most gratifying things for like everyone concerned with the show was the extent to which people who saw it told all of us that they felt seen, that, and whether it was that they were struggling with the kind of things that Lizzie's character articulates about, again, arriving in middle age and feeling lost and feeling, there's that amazing scene where she's sitting on the windowsill talking to Jesse, talking to Toby, who falls asleep as she's laying bare her soul, but where she says, I miss the longing. And, I feel like Lizzie and Claire's performances were both such devastating ones, but in such totally different ways. Like, Lizzie's in a very sort of quiet way, and Claire had that spectacular breakdown, which she, it was a mind-boggling
Oh my God, episode 7.
performance. Yes.
She just owns that episode, and the devastating part in the with the doctor,
Yeah.
which one of the most intense things I've ever seen on any screen.
And
Uh,
somehow she managed to play like every, it was such a layered performance because, on the surface, she has to play it. She is competent. She is brilliant. She is a very together human being through many of the episodes. And yet when she's playing it initially from Toby's point of view, she plays, you see the cracks because Claire is so gifted. You just understand that there's a whole other layer there. And then that layer has to do, there's more than one. One is the sort of traumatic birth and the aftermath of that and her struggling to get past that. But there's another layer below that, which is a very traumatic childhood and a feeling of deprivation and of the absence of like love in her life. And somehow Claire, Claire, it's such a virtuoso performance. You see all of it playing simultaneously. And, I think she was really careful about the shift. I think Claire, really honored Taffy's, both the novel and scripts, intentions to avoid a sort of he said, she said, that she's, awful and cold and uncaring and unfeeling in the first part, and then heroic in the second. There's nothing like that. She's a flawed human being like we all are in the first part, but you're more on Toby's side. And then she is very sympathetic in the second part, but you understand that she's not perfect, that she's made mistakes too.
oh, but it's brilliant the way our sentiments shift with the shift in tone in the show. Was there ever any discussion, Sarah, about adapting the book as a feature instead? I mean, and how and why did it wind up as an 8-part project?
I think there was a lot of interest. I think among those 24, and now we've said 30 and maybe 40 offers, there are like, I think there was a lot of interest in it as a feature. But if you've read the book, it felt like for us what a missed opportunity that would be, because there is so much. We didn't even get to everything we wanted to do in 8 episodes. I mean, some of it fell away probably for good reasons, but in the series version of the show, there was a brief period where we even talked about, and FX indulge us in this, but in doing Presidentitrix the musical as an episode, which is, for anyone who knows the show, it's a story within the story within the story. But I don't think you could effectively cover the real trajectory of these characters and their journeys in the show in 2 hours. I just can't imagine you would have to lose a lot. And, Taffy wanted to explore everything. And even in, in our 8 episodes, we didn't get to do everything we wanted to do, or she didn't.
How thrilled were you with the work of the cast?
Our cast,
Jesse, Lizzie, Claire,
I
everybody.
mean, everybody, Jesse and Lizzie and Claire and Adam and everyone else beyond that. Like, it was, Susanna and I kept saying to Taffy, like, no, you haven't been through this before. It doesn't always work this way. You don't always get exactly who you want and when I say that, I really mean it. This was our dream cast. We got exactly who we wanted in each of those roles. And we, every time one of those 4 and then the people beyond that said yes, we were so ecstatic because nobody else can play those roles. Having made it now, it's unthinkable when you think of what Jesse did as Toby, and you think about how what Claire did with that role, and Lizzie was so generous in really understanding it was her role to be a sort of wry commentator on story and
Our guide.
our guide through it until she became the center of it. And she was great about not being the center of it until her moment came, and really trusted the material that her role was shifting, and she and Claire were, we only regretted that they didn't get to play more scenes together. We also regret it because they were so wonderful together when they finally see each other in the park for the first time. When they find each other and play that episode 7 together, it was so exciting to us because the dynamic between them was so interesting. And Adam was just, such a total delight, and managed to, there's such he really played the complexity of that character, which is, that he leads with one thing as that character, and then you discover there are depths that you never saw coming, and that he's struggling with things too, and he doesn't have the answers. And we were, we were so tickled by the way that he and Jessia interacted in the episode where they go out and have a wild night, and divorced dad Toby Fleishman thinks like, oh, this is the answer, I can be free and single and enjoy these kinds of nights. And the way that Adam sort of played his confusion at that, because he actually found it kind of quite depressing, that they were having very different experiences as they went through this night together. And he realized maybe I need to move on in life, and maybe I've outlived this, and I don't want to be the guest at Thanksgiving, and I want to be someone who's needed somewhere, who has a place in the world and isn't always invited into other families. But he sort of goes through his own crisis. And when we've imagined, in our sort of fantasy football version of things, like a spin-offs to the show, like honestly, any of those 4, Taffy and Susanna and I could imagine like what you do with those characters. I think all 4 of them just so fully owned and inhabited them, and did this remarkable thing where they made those characters completely their own, and also absolutely honored the intentions both of the novel and of the show. Like, it was such a balancing act to, do what their instincts told them to do, and also be so true to the material. So
I was going to say, are we looking at the possibility of spawning a season 2 in some way? Maybe Fleishman is doing much better now, thanks.
I think we're really proud of the show we made, and I think we'd be hesitant to push our luck and move beyond. It really, I hope it did justice to the book, because I think the book is one of the great novels of the
It's
last
such
10 years, and it's hard to think about expanding beyond that, but we talk.
It's such a stylish and smartly rendered piece of work. You should be enormously proud of this, Sarah. And now let's hope the WGA and SAG-AFTRA strikes are settled soon and everyone can get back to work.
And let's hope so. I'm glad we're talking on Friday, and there's some meetings happening today, and hopefully they're fruitful conversations. And Yeah, it's a pleasure to talk to you, and hopefully, one of these days there will be these Emmy Awards, and we're so proud of everyone who is nominated. And we didn't even get to talk about John and Val, but they, we sort of courted them for this show in a big way. And when we met them, they said they like to sort of pour themselves into every corner of the things that they make. And we said, please come do that here. And they did, and they really lived and breathed the show with us for a long time. So I'd be remiss in not giving a shout out to them. And also Leah, who's nominated and just did spectacular work. And anyway, thank you.
Well, with that,
and Lauren Jody too, who we go back to over and over again, who did casting, and look at our cast. So
yeah, oh no, everybody, well deserved all of the Emmy nominations you got. Congratulations on all of them, Sarah Timberman. All
thanks
the
for
Fleishman Is in Trouble
talking to me
noms.
about it, and thanks for checking out the show and engaging with it.
It's my pleasure, and good luck at the Emmy ceremony whenever that happens to be. It's looking like January, but we're not sure. Maybe it'll be before. And thanks for joining us at Gold Derby today.
I'm sorry Taffy's not here, but she's a very good WGA member.
Her spirit hung over us for all 20 minutes.
Yes, it did hang over us for sure. But let's hope for good things today.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much. Take care.
You too.